How's it going, you guys? Welcome back. Welcome to the channel if you haven't been on my channel yet. Today, we'll be looking into Daniel chapter 3. Now, I know this video on here says Sunday sermons, but I'm doing this on a Monday evening because I didn't get the chance to do it on Sunday. I went to church and had to mow my lawn, and I know that's not an excuse, but I'm doing it now. Now, this world is built upon faith. Now, you always put your faith in something, rather it's in God or in the world. There's always a faith that goes on with your life. Now, do you put your faith in yourself or do you put it in God? Do you put your faith in the world or do you put it in God? There's many things you could put your faith in. Rather it's your job, rather it's your money, rather it's your phone, rather it's loved ones. But I think there should always be a spot that you should put your faith in God, the Lord, Jesus Christ, who gave himself on the cross for you. You should put your faith in him and in no one else but him. So we are going to take a look at the image of gold in the blazing furnace. Now, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego come up in Daniel chapter 3 because this surrounds them. Now, basically, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were given these names by Nebuchadnezzar. And basically, they did not want to worship Nebuchadnezzar's God or Nebuchadnezzar's idol, the idol of Babylon or the god of Babylon. So basically, they said, no, we're not going to do this. They rebel against Nebuchadnezzar. And they say, our God is capable of saving us from the blazing furnace. Now, we see in this chapter not Genesis, sorry, in Daniel chapter 3, that when we look into it, we see that their faith is strong. They have strong faith in God, but it's God's faithfulness that's even stronger. When we look at it and say, when they say our God is capable of saving us, they don't say our God will save us, our God is going to save us, because they don't know God's will for sure. But the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. That's what we see in Daniel chapter 3:17. Now, when they are thrown into the blazing furnace, they don't know if God's going to save them, but they know that when they die, they are going to heaven. I mean, we know this, they know this because they follow God with all their heart, mind, and soul. And they love him with all their heart, mind, and soul. That's why they refuse to worship anybody but him. Now, when we see this, this is what faith is about. We sometimes don't understand, and we sometimes don't know what God is going to do or what he has planned. But we still look to him, and we still have faith in him. Picture it, we're looking through the world, through black stained glass, and we call out to God, and he unveils that glass, and we look through the world with clear eyes now, and we can see everything that goes on, and we can see what God has done for us in our lives. But we are seeing through the eyes of Christ, how Christ saw the world and what he did for us and what he did for the world. We no longer see the world as living in sin. We no longer see sin as a pleasure that we wish to have forever, but we see sin as something that we want to run away from. And that's what faith is about. When you turn to God and put your faith in God, He clears your mind, and he basically takes away your heart of stone and gives you a heart of flesh. And it shows this throughout Scripture, that God is always changing people and always giving people assurance that he's with them and that he's always going to be with them. And he will never abandon them. What you need to understand is once God starts something, he never abandons it. He always finishes it. And with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, we're about to read into the story now, but they understood that. They understood God changed them. They understood God is a loving God. They understood God will always be with them, but God hates sin. And therefore, what Nebuchadnezzar was doing was sinful, idolatry. He was making an idol, a gold image of himself, and making people bow down and worship it. And Nebuchadnezzar, he was an idolater. But when we come to the end, he says, anybody who talks down upon the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego will be cut into pieces. He begins to understand that that God is the true God. But he said, you are basically gifted among the gods. Gods, hence gods, he says to Daniel. So he never really changes his mind on who he worships, but he says that the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the true God. All right, now, before I continue on talking about it, let's just get into the story. Into the book of Daniel, chapter 3, the image of gold in the burning furnace. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide, and set it on a plain on the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. He then summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, and magistrates, and all the provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, judges, ministers, and all the provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then they herald loud, sorry, then the herald loudly proclaimed the nations and peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of a horn, a flute, a zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into the burning furnace. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations and peoples of every language fell down and worshipped. The image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "May the king live forever. Your Majesty has issued a decree for everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, fall down and worship the image of gold. And that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into the blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor the image of gold you have set up. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now when you hear the sound of a horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then that God what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Now, Nebuchadnezzar is so prideful here. He is thinking that he's a god and that no god can save Shadrach, Meshach, or Abednego from his hands. But he's about to see. And let's get back into it. We do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. Now, they still have faith in God, even though they don't know if God is going to save them from the furnace. They say that God is able to save them from the furnace. But they still have pure faith in him, and they were willing to die for their faith. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in the army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the furnace, the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent, and the furnace was so hot, the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men were firmly tied in the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amusement and asked the advisor, "Weren't there 3 men that were tied up and thrown into the furnace?" They replied, "Certainly, your majesty." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like the son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the furnace, and the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was their hair singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angels to rescue his servants. They trusted him and delivered and defiled the king's command, and were willing to give up their lives rather than accept, serve, or worship the God except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of the nation or language or who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be cut into pieces, and their house be turned into rubble, piles of rubble, so that no other God can save in this way. For no other God can save in this way. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Now we can see that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's faith was great. But it's not about their faith. It's about God's faithfulness to save them. They put their faith in God's faithfulness to save them from the flames of the furnace. Now, Jesus talks about in the Bible our faith as the size of a mustard seed. Though our faith is small, we can move mountains with that faith because God's faith is greater. It's not about how great our faith is, but it's how great God's faithfulness is. All right. Love you guys. And I'm sorry I didn't post this on Sunday, but I'm posting it on Monday. And I just didn't feel like going through and editing the photo that I have right here and removing Sunday sermons and adding on Monday sermons. So I'm going to keep Sunday sermons up there. And I'm just going to say in the video that it's Monday. And Sunday I was busy. I wish I would have gotten it done on Sunday. But to be honest, that grass felt like it was like 4 or 5 feet tall. So I had to mow that yard. Love you guys. I'll see you guys next time. God bless.